So with Undead Murder Farce coming to a close, all I really have to say is that there really isn't going to be anything quite like this anytime soon. Because at the end of the day, detective series, the thing that kind of makes them or breaks them is if the viewer can piece things together naturally by what's being shown on screen, or if you're reading a book, there's enough clues. Because, as an example, a good Sherlock Holmes story, there's plenty of them. But there's also plenty that fall on their face. And why is that? Well, it's basically because if Sherlock has to tell the viewer all these things that happened and there was no foreshadowing, there was no breadcrumbs, you go back and reread or rewatch and those things aren't visibly there, right? You know, the only reason we know about them is because Sherlock noticed something off screen. That's not really a good whodunit, right? That's kind of lazy writing. But the brilliant thing about a good Sherlock story, or in the case of this, a good mystery series like Undead Girl Murder Farce, we have a show that when you go back, when our bodiless girl is just telling us, Aya's just chilling, she's going over this massive arc, I'm like, yup, that was all there. The soot from the chimney, the idea of who could fit through the window, the idea of what the actual hell, but when you really think about it, the punchline to this arc, the foreshadowing that was there. There wasn't a single moment that wasn't focused in on. Like when she goes around a room and is like, hey, show me that. That's basically the author saying, and the anime in this case saying, focus on that, this will be a clue. And the fact that this came to such a mind-blowing conclusion. I was not good at predicting this show. I will be the first to admit. This did not go the way I was expecting. And by the time I thought it was simply revenge, I came to accept that. And then yet again, they pull the rug from underneath my feet and say, actually, it's a little more complex. So seeing her go off and be free because Aya didn't quite solve it correctly is such a emotional and confusing mixed bag of emotions. And I truly leave the show thinking it was 10 out of 10. It may not be the hypest show of the season for many, but you can't deny the quality in the production, the writing, and just the uniqueness of a show like this. Now, I do have a full live reaction to this episode and all the episodes over on my Patreon, so if you would like to see those, they're over there if you're interested. Now, the punchline about who did this, right? I was really under the assumption that there was two culprits, one on the human side, one on the werewolf side, and that's basically what happened. But there has been a lot of uncertainty about girls who look like each other, but the idea that, well, they were found dead. And just to see the reveal, to see that, okay, this girl who was birthed, what happened to her mother, but that couldn't be her because we saw literally the whole thing burst into flames and there was two, like, wolves' bodies. Oh, the second body was actually a fox that was also there. And it's like, oh, I didn't even consider the possibility. But the idea of the complexity of what was essentially a prison cell, right? There was, I forget how long they said, maybe 18 months or something she was down there. But the idea that it didn't really look like a normal prison cell for someone that she hated, but more so it was a complex situation. And just the build up to seeing grandma who's basically just shaking in her boots being like, I'll forgive anything, you massacre everyone, just come on back, dear. And just her having none of this, right? The idea of pitting these two villages that she did not love against each other into this big moment, because seriously, had Aya not stopped them in that moment, it would have been a massacre. It was already a massacre. We ended last episode with everyone seemingly dead. Now we see the bigger picture that, you know, is probably maybe half of them because there was a lot of bodies from both the humans and the werewolf side. But the idea that without that conversation right then and there, that plan would have ended with both sides like maybe having a handful of people left alive. So the fact that for Aya knowing pretty much since the room, like when they walked into the room to examine the bedroom, okay, like, okay, who could have fit through this window? Why wasn't there soot there, you know? The idea that she pretty much knew all this from that point, but then building into this, it was such a satisfying reveal. And what I said early on, I think it was in the first or second episode of this arc, I said that Act 1 and Act 2 pretty much trained us for this moment because they were smaller, they were more digestible arcs, and it was easier to trace where the mystery was going. This, however, said take all that experience, all the build-up, and what you know about this series because we're putting you to the test and delivering the best final arc you could ask for in a show like this. And I will admit, I did not see a majority of this coming. I did not see where the werewolf human village storyline was going whatsoever. But I appreciate the fact that, especially because they used a recap in a very intelligent way, It wasn't just Aya sitting in her cage just kind of saying, yeah, when we were in the bedroom, or yeah, when I looked at this. They flashed back. They showed us the visual things, and it wasn't new animation. It was the same things we've seen in previous episodes, and it just goes like, this is a proper detective series. Something that actually, gives you the foreshadowing, gives you the clues, it sets out those breadcrumbs. And if you follow it well enough, you can get to this outcome maybe before even she reveals it. But even if not, you feel like it's such a satisfying reveal. And I think at this point, the best way I could sum this show up, I've been struggling. I really think the best way you could sell someone on this is, what if Sherlock Holmes dealt with monsters? Like, that's really the best way to sum this up. And it is such a good show with such an interesting cast of characters. And it knew how to keep things exciting at the appropriate moment. Like, look at how they started this episode. We had this action scene, right? We had like 3 or 4 fights going on. They let the opening play, badass opening song. And the transitions from blood puddles to just the chain whips and everything was just so cool. I mean, I have to give it to, obviously, our maid and just, lesbian vampire over here, because that was just, it was confetti in the air, hallucinating. It was just a very fun moment. But they got the action out of the way right at the start, and then the rest of this is all dialogue, because that's what this show is. It's a dialogue-heavy series that keeps your interest 99% of the time just because of what the characters are saying. Like, look at the first arc of this. It's basically, we stood around, walked around rooms about why a person was dead. Did she get killed? Did she kill herself? And it would keep our interest early on, and that's exactly what they did with this final moment. It was explosive at the start, and it was emotional by the end, but at the end of the day, it kept our interest with compelling dialogue, and honestly, I love this show. Now, as of the recording of this video, I don't think a season 2 has been announced, but there has been cases where I said that, and then like 20 minutes later, it did get announced. Do I think we're getting more? I have no idea. Do I hope so? Oh, you best bet I hope so, because this is a unique series. It's not the most talked about show of a season. These types of series never are. But what I will appreciate is that it built a damn good cult following pretty early on, and I think this will be a show that in the long run will be remembered more so than even maybe some of the more popular shows of this season, because it is unique, it is distinct, and honestly, there's not a lot of amazing detective series, and that is what I think this one is. Characters didn't pull things from their ass, they didn't just randomly solve things because of knowledge the viewer didn't have. Everything was here, and that emotional reveal about a girl basically acting as 3 different people and what she was doing to pit these people against each other made so much sense, and by the time we end with her leaving, I didn't know how to feel about her being let go. I was like, that is such a complex situation. I'll just let these characters deal with it. Still a lot to do with Moriarty. I think the quick little action scene we had with Sagaru in the cave when it was just like, almost like chalk. That's how I just like describe it. The action scenes were almost like chalk in the pitch black. So cool, but really, bravo. This is unique, it is distinct, and these are the shows that deserve so much more praise than they currently get, but all I can hope is time will be on this anime side because it was fantastic. But let me know for the last time what you thought of Undead Murder Farce down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course ring that bell so you get notified when I upload more videos to the channel, and like I mentioned, we have full live reactions to all these episodes over on my Patreon, and hey, while you're there, you also get a video shout out. So today we have Zuda, Sphinx, Tons Zero, and Uriel Cruz are getting today, so I appreciate the support everyone, and I appreciate you watching these videos because this was a fun one to discuss. So till next time, take care, have a good one.